Yet more division in the Tory party, now at the heart of their leadership contest. As Andrea Leadsom launches her bid for the top job, the favourite Theresa May is accused of using EU migrants living here as bargaining chips. UKIP are looking for a new leader too. Nigel Farage steps down, saying his work here is done.
During the referendum campaign, I said, I want my country back. And what I'm saying today is I want my life back.
This time he says he really means it. Also on News at 10 tonight. Another shock resignation. Chris Evans quits Top Gear, saying he gave it his best shot, but sometimes that's not enough. And far, far away, how a team on Earth will try to steer the spacecraft Juno to its destination, Jupiter, 5 years after it set off.
This is ITV News at 10 with Nina Hussain.
Good evening. In a House of Commons committee room this evening, behind closed doors, 5 Conservative politicians made their pitches to become Prime Minister and shape the future of the UK. Conservative MPs start voting tomorrow morning in the first round, after which one of the 5 will be eliminated. What happens to EU citizens living in Britain became a key issue in the contest today, with the favourite Theresa May and her closest challenger Andrea Leadsom taking different views. Tonight, Boris Johnson gave his backing to Mrs Leadsom. She has zap, he said.
Parliament has rarely been crazier or busier. From 5 till just now, it's all been about hustings for the contestants to be Tory leader and our next Prime Minister. The day before the first round of voting.
Morning.
This morning, the Brexit-loving minister drawing comparisons with Margaret Thatcher, Andrea Leadsom, had her launch with a thinly veiled attack on her rival, Theresa May, for saying EU migrants working here and Brits living in the rest of the EU face an uncertain future.
Andrea, just one last time.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I commit today to guaranteeing the rights of our EU friends who have already come here to live and work.
Can you be confident that Brits living in places like Spain and France will be able to stay there, and indeed that those who have come to work here from the rest of the EU will be able to stay here?
I firmly believe that all European countries are democratically elected political institutions who will not either act in an illegal or in an unfair way.
Leadsom's certainty about existing migrants contrasted with what the Home Secretary told me yesterday.
What's important is there will be a negotiation here as to how we deal with that issue of people who are already here and who have established life here, and Brits who've established a life in other countries within the European Union.
But it was May's supporters who were most confident after presentations given tonight by all the candidates to backbench Tory MPs and newer MPs.
Well, in the old days, there was a clapometer on some game show, if you remember. Of course, this isn't a game, this is serious business. But if you judged it on the clapometer and people being very pleased and impressed by what she said, she won hands down.
Whereas perhaps Leadsom still has a thing or two to learn.
Andrea really only put her name in the ring on Wednesday. And, you know, look, I wouldn't go by what the thunderous applause is. When you've got all your people there briefed to go and bang the desks, that doesn't mean very much at all, because they're trying to impress people outside. The truth is, it's the core arguments and this sense of character.
But Leadsom received big beast backing from Boris Johnson, who on social media said Andrea Leadsom offers the zap, the drive and the determination essential for the next leader of this country. Above all, she possesses the qualities needed to bring together Leavers and Remainers, with the implication that Michael Gove, who mugged him last week, couldn't do that. Now, with the first round of voting just one sleep away, May is thought to be way out in front with an estimated 122 votes in the bag, whereas Leadsom has 40, Michael Gove 32, Stephen Crabb 24 and Liam Fox 13. But if MPs end up nominating May and Leadsom for the final ballot to be put to 150,000 Tory members, it's widely thought it'll be nail-bitingly close. No sign of politics becoming boring again anytime soon. Robert Peston, News at 10.
For the 3 million EU citizens who call Britain home, the arguing among Conservative leadership contenders about migration is causing distressing uncertainty. Many have lived here for years and worked hard. Suddenly their futures and their place in this country are under scrutiny.
Royal blue T-shirts, the colour of the EU flag, worn by some of the 3 million Europeans in Britain today who now find themselves bargaining chips in the UK's Brexit negotiations. German, Spanish, Greek. Over the last few days, hospital staff have posed for photos showing which EU country they're from. Until we get a guarantee Brits abroad can stay there, the government says we have to play hardball. It could take years. Here are two senior doctors from that last photo taken in the maternity ward at University College Hospital, London. Italian citizen David and Polish cashier. Both have raised children here over nearly a decade.
I plan to come here to give a start for my kids, for better universities, for better life. And now I'm worried that I will have to do something to change their plans.
I'm not planning for the time being to change anything short term, but because everything is unfolding, everything might change. So
how long do you want to stay here? Forever?
Forever. That was the plan. We're moving across. We're just moving our family, we're moving our life. I want to work in a friendly environment. I want to work with high-tech technologies, high-tech medicine, and develop myself and my kids.
There are also doubts about whether EU migrants could even be sent home.
European human rights law actually protects substantial numbers of those EU citizens, and in fact that the UK then has to go through a very long and painful process of assessing whether each individual and each family is able to stay in the UK under UK law.
If this ever actually ended up happening, hospitals like this one, but other industries across the country, would grind to a halt. That's why today politicians from across the spectrum, left and right, were united in condemning the Home Secretary. One senior Tory said to me, this isn't so much a negotiating position as just a nasty position. Lena is the deputy manager in a Preston brasserie. Adrian is the Polish head chef.
I have a sister who lives in London, and she lived there for nearly 6 years, and today she spoke with our mum and she said, you know, this is the first time that I feel like England is not my home anymore.
I like working there, I like England and I like everything, but if I have to go out from there, then I have to, yeah.
Tonight, ITV News understands Labour's Yvette Cooper hopes to force a vote in Parliament that would guarantee the right to remain of EU migrants in the UK right now. Judging by the near universal unease expressed in the Commons today, it just might succeed. Allegra Stratton, News at 10.
With the Conservatives trying to recover from the leadership crisis caused by the referendum result and Labour doing the same, as we'll see in a moment, it seems UKIP didn't want to be the party missing out. Its leader, Nigel Farage, announced he is standing down, not for the first time, of course, but now he says he has achieved what he came into politics for. He got his country back, as he puts it, and he wants his life back. So yes, now UKIP has a leadership battle of its own.
Job done. The message from Nigel Farage today, insisting that having won the referendum, it was time for him to quit as UKIP's leader.
I now feel that I've done my bit, that I couldn't possibly achieve more than we managed to get in that referendum.
No question then of hanging on to help shape a post-Brexit Britain.
During the referendum campaign, I said, I want my country back. And what I'm saying today is I want my life back. And it begins right now. Thank you.
He'd quit before, but said this time he really meant it. His political career began 22 years ago, when he stood unsuccessfully for Parliament.
The message that the UK Independence Party is giving is a message that has been given on behalf of the British people.
He went on to become an MEP, using that as a platform for Euroscepticism, survived a plane crash and 10 days ago, when Leave won, declared he'd fulfilled his ambition.
Dare to dream that the dawn is breaking on an independent, united kingdom.
So who will succeed him? The only UKIP MP, Douglas Carswell, today ruled himself out.
Absolutely not. I couldn't possibly be a constituency MP, represent UKIP in the House of Commons, and be a dad and lead a party.
This woman would like to stand, but currently can't.
I am suspended from the party because I stood up against homophobia in UKIP, and as a result, for some bizarre reason, it was me that got suspended. So technically, I cannot run for the leadership at the moment.
He isn't yet quitting the European Parliament, although some there perhaps wish he would after this.
Now I know that virtually none of you have ever done a proper job in your lives.
But what do voters in Middleton, where UKIP nearly triumphed 2 years ago, make of his legacy?
I didn't like the way he stood up in the European Parliament and sort of goaded them. I didn't like that at all. I thought that was bad form.
Bit of a shock, but I think he's done the right thing.
He's done the right thing.
Yeah.
A man who broke many of the rules of politics and helped to break Britain's link to Europe. Libby Vina, News at 10, Westminster.
So what about Labour and its leader? Well, Jeremy Corbyn's name was taken in vain by his MPs at a meeting tonight. We've talked about pressure on him rising, but it feels like it did again this evening. Mr Corbyn's deputy, Tom Watson, who wants him to go, says he'll talk to the unions tomorrow to try to persuade them to pull their support for him for the good of the party.
After the events of the past week, I wanted to talk directly to Labour Party members.
This afternoon, Jeremy Corbyn released this message for his followers, appealing for his party, in particular his MPs, to back him.
I want to reach out to all our members, to all our supporters, to all our trade union affiliates, and to my colleagues in Parliament. Come together, now.
But it's too late. He has lost the support of Labour MPs, even if he still has the support of the majority of the party membership. It's now emerged that Labour's deputy leader Tom Watson met Mr Corbyn this morning and told him that was not enough. Without the support of MPs, he could not continue. Mr Watson is due to meet Mr Corbyn's union backers tomorrow to try and thrash out some kind of a deal, but that's been described as the last throw of the dice. For now, the unions are standing behind Jeremy Corbyn.
Well, Jeremy has got the biggest democratic mandate of any Labour Party leader in history. What should happen now is that those people who are opposing it either put up or shut up. We cannot continue to go on like this. If they're not prepared to put up, they should come behind our leader.
But the MPs insist if he doesn't go, they will put up.
I have the support to run and resolve this impasse, and I will do so if Jeremy doesn't take action soon.
This afternoon, Jeremy Corbyn gave evidence on tackling anti-Semitism to a committee of MPs, and he faced this.
Do you accept that Jewish groups and organisations are fearful, with you as the leader of the Labour Party, given what you have said and done, some of which you've regretted today, I think, for the first time, that you are fostering a period in the party where anti-Semitism exists?
I think that's deeply unfair and deeply wrong.
That such a question could even arise has Labour MPs despairing. And tonight, their former leader Lord Kinnock gave a rousing speech in Parliament in which he said the Labour Party had once been on the edge of the abyss, but now they are in it. Carl Dinnan, News at 10.
Robert is in Westminster tonight. And where to begin? Let's start with the Tories. Can you call it? Who do you think will win tomorrow's ballot?
Well, a word of warning first. I've covered a few of these events in my time, and I have to say Tory MPs are probably the most dishonest electorate in the world. They're telling people like me one thing about how they're planning to vote, but what they actually do when they get to cast that secret vote, well, I'm not confident they'll do exactly as they've told me. That said, it is pretty clear that Theresa May, the Home Secretary, is significantly out in front, and I'm going to wager that Liam Fox, although I think he's said to have performed quite well in the hustings tonight, will come last. Where there's uncertainty is over the other three: Stephen Crabb, Michael Gove, Andrea Leadsom. She didn't perform desperately well tonight, but she's got momentum behind her. The real uncertainty is Michael Gove, because lots of Tory MPs, lots of Tory members are very angry with him for the way that he is seen to have betrayed Boris Johnson. That said, he performed well tonight. Lots of people rate him highly, and I think secretly some MPs who are currently saying they're not going to back him may well end up backing him. So it's that tussle between Andrea Leadsom and Michael Gove that I'm particularly gripped by. We'll know the answer tomorrow. If Andrea Leadsom next week or later in the week gets onto the ballot, it's going to be fascinating to see her and May in a runoff. But that runoff is by no means certain right now.
OK, on to Nigel Farage. He has friends, he has foes. No mistaking, he's had a colossal impact on British politics.
He has. I mean, no point in saying all that much about him now, other than that, he is one of the towering figures of the last 20 years. He campaigned remorselessly for that vote, and in the end, he got the vote he wanted. We're leaving, so he does have a place in history.
Robert Peston, thank you. By any yardstick, even in Iraq, where carnage is all too common, a bombing that kills 200 people is of a different and distressing magnitude. Today, they have been burying the dead from Saturday night's attack in Baghdad, when a lorry packed with explosives blew up a shopping centre, busy with people who'd been fasting during the day for Ramadan. The weekend's attacks are just the latest bombings in Baghdad, claimed by the so-called Islamic State. In May, a wave of suicide attacks across the city killed at least 200 people. This upsurge in violence marks a further shift in Islamic State's strategy as government forces complete the retaking of Fallujah. But that is a rare success in an increasingly divided country, with IS still holding large areas of the north, including the major city of Mosul. Kurdish fighters have also made recent gains further east. Their aim is independence. And even in the south, where the government is in control, Iran's influence is increasingly felt over the mostly Shia population, leaving the future of the country, looking more precarious than ever.
In a city which has endured more than a decade of slaughter, a new dreadful low. One of the worst attacks Baghdad has ever seen. The death toll spiralling towards 200. This, the Islamic State's perverse response to defeating Fallujah, a lorry bomb that vaporised entire families enjoying a night out. Today, the bereaved visited the scene of this appalling atrocity, struggling to comprehend the inhumanity of a group that deliberately targets women and children. Zina Mohammed lost several relatives in the blast. May God punish those responsible, she cries. So many people are still under the rubble. And it is the families of the dead who are helping to recover the bodies, or what's left of them. Many are charred beyond all recognition. Now, across Iraq, there is one question. Where's next? In the mostly Shiite Basra, morning markets are nervously surveyed by security forces of a country that continues to disintegrate 13 years after Saddam was toppled. In 2 days, Sir John Chilcot will give his verdict on that seismic event, but Zainab Ali and her father Hamid have already reached theirs. A US airstrike took her leg, her mother and 2 brothers. As a young girl, she came to Britain for treatment, but is withering about Britain's attempt to improve Iraq. She says the invasion affected all of Iraq. They attacked us, they changed my life forever, and they changed other children's lives. Many other children were injured. Her dad says, I lost my family. They came to occupy for their own interests. They took what they wanted. How did we benefit from them? In a village nearby, the other effects of Western intervention. Despite the millions spent, there's still not even the most basic healthcare. Here, a British charity fills the void.
Iraq used to have a brilliant primary health care system in comparison to the surrounding countries, but after the invasion, the system collapsed.
This is the reality for many Iraqis, healthcare handed out by charities because the country is in such chaos. The hopes of rebuilding Iraq have crumbled away after the invasion. The legacy that Britain left here is difficult to see. But for many Iraqis, the real legacy of the invasion is found at funerals like this one in Najaf, where yesterday's victims are being laid to rest. Victims who are part of the same tangled thread that started with the toppling of a dictator and ended with the rise of ISIS, a fractured country reeling from 13 years of unintended consequences. Dan Rivers, News at 10, Iraq.
Tonight, the names of some of those dead, many of them young men, are beginning to emerge. Like Mohammed Mahdi al-Badri, his wife today gave birth to their son. The three friends who had recently graduated from university who died together. And Dulfikar, the son of a former footballer who represented Iraq. Just 5 of the 200 or so victims. If only there had been better checks on foreign criminals like the Latvian builder who's believed to have murdered the London schoolgirl Alice Gross. Her family says she could still be alive. The coroner at her inquest plans to write to the Home Office with a list of recommendations about foreign national cases. Today, Alice's family said that the state had failed Alice and them.
Losing Alice has shattered me. The pain of knowing I'll never see, hear or coddle her again is unbearable.
The father of Alice Gross, after an inquest jury ruled today that she had been unlawfully killed. Tonight's programme, like the last 10 days really, has seen more than its fair share of resignations. The tendency to throw in the towel didn't just claim Nigel Farage today, but the TV presenter most recently of Top Gear, Chris Evans. With viewing figures for the programme falling from top to bottom gear, he says he gave it his best shot, but sometimes that's not enough. Oh, to have heard what Jeremy Clarkson had to say about it.
1, 2, 3, 4. Go! He was chosen as the man to replace Jeremy Clarkson. Feel the heat, baby! Chris Evans did feel the heat, from the fans, from the critics, as the restyled show was panned.
I think Top Gear with the new series made a huge mistake on the first show that they aired. It wasn't very good. That was the problem. They got the balance, in my own opinion, all wrong.
There were reports of bad chemistry between Evans and fellow presenter Matt LeBlanc. A disappearing audience, negative headlines in the press, with allegations dating back to the 90s, have piled pressure on the broadcaster. Today, having completed the first series, Evans announced his departure in a tweet, saying, "Stepping down from Top Gear, gave it my best shot, but sometimes that's not enough. The team are beyond brilliant. I wish them all the best."
They tried to cram 7 new presenters all together. They tried to create chemistry that wasn't there, and they just tried to run before they could walk.
The corporation are not saying at this stage whether a new presenter will be brought in to join Matt LeBlanc and the rest of the team. Ironically, the critics say after its poor start, the show had become pretty good by the end of the series, though most of the good bits did not involve Chris Evans.
And straight away, I can sense the difference.
Top Gear didn't work out, but Chris Evans will continue with his radio show and other ventures. His predecessor, Jeremy Clarkson, is filming out of the country and not available for comment. Paul Davis, News at 10.
For 11 months of the year, Cristiano Ronaldo and Gareth Bale are Real Madrid teammates. But on Wednesday evening, they'll line up on opposite sides in what is already the greatest night in the history of Welsh football, their Euro 2016 semi-final against Portugal. Bale was pretty quick to point out today that the match is not about 2 players, but about 2 nations.
If ever a build-up to a match was dominated by 2 men, this is it. For Wales, it's the most expensive player in the world, Gareth Bale. For Portugal, it's the world's second most expensive, Cristiano Ronaldo. They are, of course, teammates at Champions League winning Real Madrid, but that's where the similarities end. Bale has had an outstanding tournament.
It's another extraordinary free kick from Gareth Bale.
Ronaldo hasn't.
Ronaldo, oh my goodness me!
And off the pitch, they couldn't be more different either. Bale has been as obliging as you could wish for. Ronaldo won't even do a press conference. And when he was asked a question, he did this.
Gareth, the comparison between you and Cristiano has been very interesting. You seem very relaxed, you're laughing, you're happy to do interviews. Cristiano seems quite tense, he's thrown a microphone into the lake. Why would that be? What's the difference?
I'm not too sure. I can't comment on how he's feeling or what he's doing. I'm sure he has his reasons for doing what he did, but that's entirely up to him.
Others, though, think they do know why Ronaldo's so petulant.
I think the way we see Ronaldo is when we see he's not totally happy, or when we think that he's not totally happy, is because he wants to be the best. He really wants to be the best.
But whatever his state of mind, Ronaldo can be a genius. So do Wales have a plan to contain him?
No, not really. I think just no more than what we had for Eden Hazard, when we played them. Or, he's a great player. But, Portugal are a very resilient team.
Wales maintain they win together, and nowhere was that better exemplified than in their last game when Bale didn't score, but Hal Robson-Kanu did, a championship player who hasn't even got a club at the moment. So it's Wales against Portugal, starring Bale against Ronaldo. Ian Payne, News at 10 in Dinant.
If Andy Murray is feeling the pressure as favourite to win Wimbledon, now Djokovic is out. There wasn't much sign of it this evening. He had a good 3-set win against the Australian bad boy and 15th seed Nick Kyrgios to reach his 9th straight Wimbledon quarter-final. Next up, the French 12th seed Jo-Wilfried Tsonga on Wednesday. Finally, there's a long night ahead for astronomers who in the next few hours will try to steer a spacecraft travelling at 150,000 miles an hour into a more gentle orbit around Jupiter. That means hitting the metaphorical brakes hard. If it goes wrong, the Juno craft heads off into space, never to be seen again. We should know by dawn.
The Juno probe took off from Earth 5 years ago. The first dedicated mission in a decade to visit the solar system's largest, most powerful planet. It's an American mission, but it's here in Buckinghamshire that Juno's main engine, the Leros 1B, was designed, built and tested. In less than 12 hours, that engine, 500 million miles from home, will burst into life, heating up to 3,000 degrees Celsius and blasting Juno into orbit around Jupiter. This is a rocket engine very similar to the one aboard Juno hurtling towards Jupiter right now. It has an awesome responsibility to slow down the spacecraft by 1,200 miles an hour so that Juno can be captured by Jupiter's gravity and go into orbit. It has one chance to do its job, and if it doesn't work, Juno will fly past Jupiter and on into deep space. Understandably, the engineers who designed it are nervous.
Right now, I think we're all counting down to the clock. Very nervous about what's going to happen. We're confident that the mission's going to survive. Leros 1B has flown 17 times before. The Leros 1B on Juno has fired twice already, so we're pretty confident. But there's always that seed of doubt. You have a $1.1 billion spacecraft relying solely on your engine to do its job. So fingers crossed, all is going to be well.
When it arrives at Jupiter, Juno will be travelling at more than 40,000 miles per hour relative to the giant planet. To get into orbit, it needs to slam on the brakes by burning its engine for exactly 35 minutes. If it misfires, the entire mission could be lost, but if successful, Juno will be close enough to investigate how much water and oxygen the planet holds, and it'll be able to look beneath Jupiter's clouds to discover what lies in the planet's core. Probing the planet will help scientists unlock the history of the early solar system, but Juno will face a tough time around the giant planet.
Juno is now bracing itself to run the gauntlet of one of the harshest radiation environments in the whole solar system. Jupiter's radiation belts are far more dangerous than the Earth's and far more intense. Lots and lots of very high energy particles.
This is the last image Juno took of Jupiter before the cameras were turned off to allow the probe to focus on its audacious manoeuvre in a few hours. Flight engineers now face a tense night ahead before the real science can begin. Alok Jha, News at 10.
Time for a quick look at what will be making the news tomorrow. We'll have the result of that first round in the Conservative leadership contest and confirmation of which candidate has been eliminated. And remember, the American presidential election, yes, it's still been going on while UK politics as we know it has been falling apart. Well, tomorrow President Obama goes out campaigning with Hillary Clinton for the first time. Julie will be here tomorrow, but from me and everyone here tonight, Good night.